I'm wrestling, do not weep for me. Celebrate what I am. Celebrate what I have been. Celebrate what I represent. And celebrate the many ways I have impacted your life. I will survive this test as I have survived others. I am forever etched into the very fiber of all mankind. The world needs me. Time is on my side. History guarantees me. I am wrestling. Do not wait for me.
What is up, guys? It is episode 4 of the T-Row and Funky Show. And Tommy, I'm going to start off with, we were supposed to have Daniel Cormier on today, and literally 3 minutes ago, he texted me and told me he has to go to a concert, so he is not coming on.
Yeah, disappointing, Ben, but at the same time, we've got so much that we'd like to talk about that maybe it'll be better to have Daniel on when we have less to talk about in terms of these, what happened this weekend in wrestling and what have you. I'm not sure, but a little disappointing, but it's nice that DC reached out to us to let us know, and he didn't totally flake on us. So
yeah, and it is kind of disappointing he came on today because I was going to shake him down about his Oklahoma State Cowboys. That wasn't on our show to talk about right away, but now that Daniel's not coming on, man, just disappointing performance, I feel like, from the Cowboys, who a lot of people had pegged as the front runner coming into the season. They've lost to Iowa already. They lost to NC State, and you can say they didn't have all their starters in, but that's still a big loss. It really is. Yeah,
it is, and by the same token, man, what a coming out party for NC State. I mean, I know Pat Popolizio has been building something good there for a few years now, but that's a statement win right there. I mean, that is something that, Pat's a hustler from what I gather, and he's going to build off of that win and use it to his advantage with recruiting out east and all kinds of stuff. So pretty interesting shakeup and a good piece of news in the wrestling community.
Yeah, and, Flo does have North Carolina State ranked all the way up to 6, but it's primarily based on having Gwiz at 1 and then Kevin Jack at number 1. And they don't have a huge amount of highly ranked individuals besides those two. So that's kind of why this win today was so surprising for me is, I mean, I don't want to sound uninformed, but some of these North Carolina State guys, I don't know who they are. I never even heard of them, Tommy.
Well, I think that Popolizio has done a good job recruiting, maybe not the blue chip recruits and doing something with them to where they can compete, and that might have something to do with it. But I think you're right. I mean, their high ranking has a lot to do with having two guys ranked that can score over 20 points at the NCAA's. But you only need 2 or 3 other guys to win a few matches, and you're actually are top 6 in the country.
True.
So.
When I was coaching Arizona State, we took 6 in the country with 3 guys essentially scoring points in NCAA tournaments. So it can be done for sure. I think that plays a part in the team race. I think obviously, one guy we've talked about before, Chance Marsteller, looked really, really, really terrible as he has been at 57. So I think even more credence to the fact that they need to bring JoJo out for sure.
Do you think John will do it? Do you think he'll do it?
I think he will. And, honestly, when you look at a bunch of these high-ranked programs, whether it's Oklahoma State or, Missouri, who we're going to get to in a second, or Ohio State, they got a lot of decisions to make about bringing people out this year. Because I think, years ago, I would have been totally against bringing redshirts out. But now I feel like you never know when people are going to be healthy. And, like Jaden Cox at Missouri, yeah, he's got a senior year, but what if he gets hurt his senior year? And this could have been the year that they placed high. So I feel like they got some big decisions to be made. Those 3 teams specifically, Penn State, I don't feel like they have too many decisions like that. And Iowa, same thing. I don't feel like they have too many decisions.
I think if you can win the national championship by bringing a guy out, then it's a pretty easy decision. And if you've recruited the right guy, then he knows – I guess, I might not be able to win it this year, or maybe, that's the expectation. But if I get 7th instead of the guy who's currently in there who's, can't buy a win, and it's the difference in winning a national championship or not. I mean, you got to come out and wrestle. Outside of that, it becomes really interpretive. Is the guy ready? Is it what's best for his long-term growth as an athlete? what are you jeopardizing down the road with eligibility? Would it be better to have him in his 5th year than just 4 years straight? But if your team can win the national championship, if you have a fighting chance, you got to put the best lineup out there, no doubt about it.
Yeah. So let's get into the Vegas Open, because that was obviously the biggest news of the weekend. I think there were 13 out of the top 25 ranked teams in attendance. And Tommy, I gotta brag. The Missouri Tigers put it on everybody. They won by 40 points, which, if you want to know, was the most points spread between the first and second place teams since my 2006 Missouri Tigers won by 48 points.
It's a pretty impressive win, Ben. I gotta give it to the Tigers. Would not have predicted that for all the tea in China. Maybe not necessarily that they wouldn't win it, because I could see that happening, but the fact that they blew everybody out of the water, to your point, winning by 40 points or more over every other team, very impressive. A good sign of things to come. Brian Smith, ever since you and a few other guys came in there, I want to call it 8, 9, 10 years ago, it's been a heck of a run every year. They've always been knocking on the door. And now with last year, even though they didn't win it, they certainly were on the short list. And now what they're doing this year in early December, pretty impressive what's going on there. And I got to tell you, Ben, and I don't follow wrestling maybe quite as closely as you, and definitely not as much as some of our counterparts, CP and Willie Smalls and all these guys, but I haven't heard of a whole lot of the Mizzou Tiger guys. I knew Jaden Cox coming out was a big deal. I knew that. But outside of that, I can't really identify with any of these guys being just blue chip recruits. And I could be wrong. That's
no, you're 100% on. And I think Coach Smith, obviously Missouri's doing a great job, like you said, but he is one of the guys who does the most with unheralded recruits. Across the whole country, and you look at certain programs, they do great with their blue chippers. But right now Oklahoma State's one I'm looking at where they get a lot of blue chippers and they do a good job with the blue chippers, but I think they do kind of a poor job at developing those holes, like we're seeing them have this year at, say, 84 and 97 aren't really very strong weights with them. 33 is not a great weight, where, a Barlow McGee wasn't a high recruit. Levon Mays wasn't a high recruit. Even a Daniel Lewis at 165 who had a great tournament.
Yeah, he sure did.
He was a good recruit, but not a great recruit. So I think Coach Smith at Missouri, one of the things that's helped him win is he's done a lot with little. Mark Ellis, my roommate, was a walk-on who won a national title. So
that's right.
And that's important. And I think there's not a huge amount of programs that do well with those guys.
No, you hit it on the head. There's a lot of programs that it's almost like their niche. They make a living doing that. They identify maybe a mindset or an attitude and develop them from there. Or maybe it's out of necessity because they, for whatever reason, the resources or the scholarship dollars or a lot of things in between, they're not landing the big blue chip recruits. But by the same token, it's really just the formula doesn't matter as long as you're putting out a program that can win, whether they're blue chips or anything in between. The object of the game is to win. So,
for sure. Well, you mentioned formulas, and I want to touch on that before we get back to Vegas because we got so much.
I think we're going to ramble tonight, Ben. That's my prediction, but it's okay. We'll roll with it.
So I made a tweet last week. It was right after we taped our show with Noel about Dylan Peters. He won on one of those stupid stall rules, and I made a tweet. Good job on this win against Barlow McGee, but he's not going to All-American. And so I want to talk about two formulas, Tommy. Number one is a formula for an athlete to do well at NCAAs. Number two is a formula for a team to do well at NCAAs, because you and I have both been there not only as individuals but also on very successful teams.
Correct. So,
for a team to do well at NCAAs, and I think if you look back over the past 15 to 20 years, you're going to find almost every single team has this formula. Number one, I'm going to give you three things, and we haven't even talked about this, so you might disagree. Number one, you got to have your sure things. So, for example, Logan Steeper for Ohio State, David Taylor, Ed Ruth for Penn State, Brett Metcalf for Iowa.
I would agree. I think you need two. I think you need two guys scoring big points. 20 points at the Nationals.
Yep. And so you need your sure things. And I'm not saying they're going to win for sure, but top 2 or 3, and they're going to score some. And the second thing, there's going to be some bonus guys, right? And this is one thing Missouri did well this weekend in Vegas. And I know they did well when I was there my senior year, and Penn State was the king of this. It was almost a cheat code that they had David Taylor and Ed Ruth. It was kind of cheating because you could guarantee they're going to get about 15 to 18 bonus points, which is essentially like having a second or third place athlete on another second or third place athlete on your team.
No doubt.
In addition,
no doubt.
So you need your big guns for sure. You need at least 1 or 2 of them, like you said. You need your bonus pointers, and you need your a whole group of maybes. Because, let me dissect Missouri this year. Barlow McGee, he could All-American, but not a sure thing. 41, Matt Manley could All-American, but not a sure thing. 65, you got Daniel Lewis, could All-American, beat some really high-ranked guys, but definitely not a sure thing. 74, same thing. So you got those 4 or 5 guys where you're going to get maybe 2 or 3 All-Americans. So you get your 3 All-Americans from the maybes, you get 2 or 3 for sure things, and you get a bunch of bonus points, and that's a
national championship. Or maybe it's not a national championship team, but they're in the 3 or 4 team discussion that can pull it off.
Yeah, and so that's a formula, and I think Missouri played that out well, and like I said, so I think there's only a few teams this year.
So last year, actually they did have some sure things. They had some guy. Jaden Cox is guaranteed to score big points.
Yeah.
At the time, Alan Waters
and Drake Howdershell. They had 3 number ones going in to the tournament, which they ended up taking 1st, 3rd, and 5th respectively.
Right.
So, yeah, and that's so I think if you look at that formula, Missouri's kind of I don't want to say they have enough sure things yet because that kind of makes me nervous. They got Jaden's. I think he's a sure top 2, top 3 guy.
He's a sure thing. And this Le'Veon Mays, is that how you say it, Le'Veon?
I thought it was Le'Veon too, but it's actually Levon Mays.
Levon, okay, got it.
Yeah.
He obviously is freak talent. I loved watching him wrestle last year. I did not get to watch his finals match last night, but the way that he wrestles, he could be a sure thing. But I'm speaking about him last year when I watched him. Yeah. He also had, a lot of opportunities where he could, he wasn't like this rock solid, competitor. He had a lot of scoring potential and a lot of getting scored on potential. Yeah. And if he can iron that out, he could easily be a sure thing type of guy.
Yeah. And so, 149 obviously I think is, in my opinion, tougher than 141 is this year. And then the other guy on Missouri's team that I sometimes I want to call him a contender because he almost beat Gabe Dean this weekend, but then he lost in the 3rd place match to the Virginia Tech kid was Willie Mickles. So I'm not. I love
he beat my guy Kenny Court's pretty good in the Concy semis.
Yeah. I'm a Missouri homer, and I want to be a Missouri homer, but until Levon or Willie or one of the other guys steps up, I'm going to say Missouri's on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I still think they are, but I guess what they proved to me this weekend is that even though I think they're on the outside looking in, now I'm not going to be surprised if they make the strides necessary to where at the end of the year I've changed my opinion.
Yeah.
Whereas, last week before the Vegas tournament, I would have said, I'll never feel like they can pull it off. Now I'm holding out that speck of, hey, it wouldn't completely floor me if all of a sudden they're, on the short list going to the Nationals, 2 or 3 teams that can win it.
Yeah, and so they do have 2 other guys they're looking. We talk about this redshirt discussion. At 157, Joey LaValle's redshirting, and I believe he was a 9 seed at Nationals last year, and I want to say he got knocked out in the round of 16. So he's redshirting right now, and then they're starting a true freshman. They could pull him in, and then the other one is there's actually a true freshman at 133 that's redshirting named Jaden Clayton, and he has beaten Missouri's starter twice this year. And Zach Sinon's he's NCAA qualified, he's a tough guy, but Clayton's beaten him twice this year and looked outstanding. So that's
so if you're Brian Smith and you just beat the field by a wide margin at the Vegas Invite, are you pulling their red shirt now, or are you beginning to have meetings with them, seeing what their thoughts are, saying, here's the possible scenarios? What are you doing, Ben, if you're the president of Missouri Wrestling?
Yeah, man, and that's a tough choice because, like I said, nothing is guaranteed down the road. who knows what could happen next year. And this is a year where right now they're proven they're one of the best teams. Top 5, no doubt. I think. I'd like to see them at a scuffle type event to see how they both do. But yeah,
are they going to the scuffle?
I don't believe so. But I would be thinking really hard about pulling them on a red shirt. So
yeah, I think the Buckeyes are in a similar position that even though they didn't come close to Missouri, and I'm not saying this is an excuse because they deserve to get the place that they got this year given what they put out there. But when you look at Mick Jordan's performance at 141, who was a redshirt freshman that everybody knows is good, but I think at this point, I'd be pretty shocked if Mick Jordan wasn't wrestling on Friday night in the semifinals at the national tournament. I think he's wrestling.
Dang, you're gonna give him that already?
Well, I don't want to do it to him
because no doubt.
I watched him wrestle Arizona State, and that's when my opinion changed about what he is capable of this year. And he's just a buzzsaw. He wrestles a lot different than his brother Bo. He's not as physically just grinding. He's not he's not just pulverizing his opponents on the mat or anything like that. But I mean, he's in and out. He's always shooting. He's always looking for shots. He's a good, well-rounded wrestler. I think he's going to be on the short list. And so, with that being said, if you got the old Hunter Stieber back.
So is Stieber coming back?
Yeah, I think he's going to be wrestling in January.
When's he making his debut? January he's making his debut?
I think after Christmas is when he's going to be wrestling. So, but anyways, the point I was getting is Miles Martin today, who is obviously a great recruit, just went through the Nittany Lion Open. He beat, I forget the kid's name, but that guy went 1-1 against Bo Nickel at Penn State in the wrestle-offs.
Okay.
And then he got to the finals and lost to Bo Nickel 4-3. And so here's a guy who's only been on campus for 3 months in a dogfight with a guy ranked 6th in the country. And you got to think, do I take this guy out and increase our chances that much more, put Bo Jordan down to 65? Man, it's bittersweet. It's the right thing to do. I'm glad Coach Ryan advocated for this. But man, if we had Kyle Snyder in there, it'd be a tough team to beat.
Yeah. Damn it, Kyle! What are you doing?
Trying to win
the Olympics is not even a big deal. What are you doing, Kyle? Yeah. So let's get to the rest of Vegas. So 25. I watched this match. Tommy, I know that's your guy and all, but that was robbery. That was highway robbery. I mean, the first stall call was almost, it just made me want to grab the screen and shake it. The second stall call. Yeah, right?
I mean, I know there's new rules with this edge wrestling and being on top, and maybe, Ben, you can dive into it. But I was just watching wrestling, all of a sudden they warned Joey Dance for stalling. Made no sense to me.
Yeah. And listen, I'll be the first guy to advocate for more stalling. And I almost am leaning towards I kind of like the new rules. But then calls like this make me want to say, what in the hell is going on out there?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think in anyone's definition of stalling that could have been considered stalling.
No, and we can get into some definitions of what stalling is on top later. And I've got a wide foray of things that I want to bring up with top wrestling, at least in my opinion. Maybe we can finish that off when we're talking about this match. But Tomasello, to be fair, I think Joey Dance got some tough calls, but the match didn't get stolen from him. It's not like he got bad calls. He was going to win, but instead he lost. It's just it probably should have been an overtime situation. And that kind of got stolen from him. But at the same time, Joey Dance wasn't doing a whole lot to help himself. Yeah. But he was presenting himself. He was staying in the center of the mat. He wasn't running from the guy. So with all that being said, I was pretty shocked by the calls.
Yeah, and Dance actually I got to watch his match versus Barlow McGee, the Missouri guy. I'm a homer, so I'm watching the Missouri matches. But it was a really interesting match. Dance was very passive, kind of like he said he wasn't doing anything to help himself. And they got into OT, and he got pushed out, and he got warned for stalling. And so I want to say it was 3-3 maybe or something like that. And he got warned for stalling, and then all of a sudden he scores like 4 seconds later. And it was like, well,
the guy's explosive. I mean,
yeah.
He is. He's, and that's why Tomasello. He was pretty aggressive against Dance last night, but he wasn't as aggressive as he usually is. And I think it's because if you just fly at Joey Dance and give him the kitchen sink, I mean, you're playing right into his style. So you got to be a little bit more calculated because the kid is so explosive and powerful that it's a tough guy to wrestle, and he can go get points whenever he needs to. That's why he's ranked 3rd in the country.
100%. And so I mean, I think that weight is that match has definite. What's the word? Tommy, I'm going blank on the repercussions for nationals. Is that the word I'm moving for? Because I mean, I think really you got a 4-horse race there. I think you got Tomasello, Gilman, Dance, and Megaludis. Dance already beat Megaludis. Gilman's wrestled none of them. Tomasello and Megaludis still got to wrestle, but I think you're really coming out of those four. I don't know that anyone. Moises looked bad this year. Especially when you're considering he's a national finalist, he has not looked very good.
Yeah, he's got a couple knocks on the chin, correct?
Yeah, I mean Barlow's beat him twice, and then he lost out and didn't even place at Vegas.
Yeah.
So he's looking, but so Tomasello Dance that stalling call. We're talking about these stalling calls that could have a huge effect on the seeding at nationals because I don't know that Tomasello and Dance are going to see each other again before nationals, are they?
I don't know. I should know that, Ben, because I'm a homer for the Buckeyes, but I don't know if we're going to cross paths with Virginia Tech or not for the rest of the year. But, you're right. I think it's those four guys. You got Gilman, Megaludis, Dance, and Tomasello. Nate is even improved from last year when I watch him wrestle. He's just got a lot more swagger, a lot more confidence about what he's doing. But it'll be interesting. It'll be an interesting weight. So
definitely. Well, let's go 133. Which I think is the match of the tournament for sure.
I agree,
100%. And I gotta say, I love Nishan Garrett, but I wouldn't have picked him over Cody Brewer. I mean, not even if you gave me a couple points, I wouldn't have picked him.
I wouldn't have picked him either. But I just want to speak about that match generally. If we could produce that type of product, 80 to 90% of the time, our sport would sell into the mainstream because that was exciting. It looked like two guys trading punches, and it didn't look like a tactical chess match where people are playing strategic games that only wrestling junkies would understand. And I think anybody could have identified, a casual sports fan could have identified with the competition going on in that match. I mean, Cody Brewer throwing Nishan on his bean, Nishan scoring like 3 or 4 almost takedowns out of bounds. You got great tilts on top, explosive action, people flying across their back. I mean, that's what wrestling's all about. That was the match of the tournament for me, at least. And I love the way that is it Garrett or Garrett? Garrett, Nishan Garrett wrestles. And to your point, I would not have picked him against Brewer. I thought Brewer was a little bit more technically sound and solid, and he's exciting in his own right too. But man,
definitely
great match.
And as I didn't get to watch this match live, I was at a kids tournament yesterday. But as I was reading through it, I kind of got a different impression the way everyone was talking about it. I had the impression that Brewer got an early lead from the throw, and then Garrett came back and dominated, and he did. Obviously I can't praise what he did enough, but Tommy, I don't want to say it's domination. I want to kind of go against what everyone's thinking. So obviously Brewer gets the throw, but Garrett's whole thing was predicated on that tilt. If he doesn't get that tilt, he doesn't get the last 2 takedowns easy. I mean, Brewer was he knew he was losing. He kind of got out of position, over exaggerated some takedowns. So
I think you're right. I mean, but at the same time, Garrett had 3 or 4 takedowns where he was completely in dominant control of the action, and the only thing that saved Brewer was the out of bounds line.
Yeah. So nationals, who are you picking? Brewer or Garrett? And do you move to Nishan Garrett to number 1 after this? Because I think a lot of people are writing him off after he didn't place last year at 133, which for what it's worth, I kind of rail against weight cutting. If you've ever read some of my stuff, and I think this proves it. Nishan Garrett's a much better wrestler at 133 than he was at 125.
I think to say that Garrett looks like the best wrestler at 33, I mean, I think it's accurate. I know you got Corey Clark out there that it would be hard to put Garrett ahead of Clark, but at the same time, he's a couple-time All-American, 2 or 3-time All-American. He just dominated the defending national champion. That throw you could consider from Brewer was a little bit of luck and circumstance more than anything, but the tempo of the match was completely dominated by Garrett. I don't think it's wrong to put him at number 1. If he's lower than number 2, though, that would be criminal.
Because Ryan Taylor hasn't really competed. I don't think at all Ryan Taylor's competed this year, and then obviously Earl Hall finished lower than both of Brewer and Garrett, so you can't put him up there at all.
Right.
So 141, we kind of discussed it already. Micah Jordan was on fire. He looks great. And you know what? When I look at that weight class,
He beat Solomon Chisco, who beat Gulaban a few weeks ago. So, and he's been in control of basically every match he's wrestled this year. So I think he should be ranked in the top 5 or 6 this coming week.
And that weight class is wide open. Number 1 and number 3, Dean Heil and Kevin Jack wrestled today. It was an entertaining match. But I don't see anyone calling Kevin Jack or Dean Heil unbeatable by any means.
No.
So, and Chris McCarty's number 2, Ashnault's number 4. You got McKenna, Evan Henderson, Gilliban. This weight's
Jordan.
It's as wide open as it gets. It's as wide open as it gets.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting. It'll be a fun match fun weight class to watch develop the rest of the year. Yeah,
and we should know, as we get closer to Christmas, we should know a lot more. But yeah, as I look through this weight class, Flo Flo actually had Micah Jordan ranked 20th. Oh, CP, where are you at?
What is that? So
is that
fair for CP to have him at 20, but I'm interested to see what he thinks going into this week. The other thing, and it's not his fault, but us Ohio people, he's known as Mick Jordan or Mickey Jordan just in the culture of Ohio. So when, now he's on the national scene and his real name is Micah, so it's not necessarily wrong. But I guess it'd be like calling me Thomas Rollins. And I saw Zeb Miller getting on CP this week about calling him Micah.
Hey, you don't have to totally out yourself here, but I want to ask you about a rumor I've read on a few forums.
Oh boy!
You okay with that?
Oh boy! Yeah, let's go ahead.
I've read, and I don't know, true, not true. I got no idea. I've read that Isaac Jordan will graduate from Wisconsin this year and transfer to Ohio State next year, where he'll wrestle 65. And Bo will move up to 74, and then Miles Martin will redshirt. Well, wait, true, false? Where are we going on that? No idea.
Man, I thought it was really going to be a rumor that I didn't feel comfortable talking about. Like it was like had validity, but I've never heard anything like that, Ben.
So it's all hot air.
It's as far as I know. I mean, it's good hot air. I mean, for the sake of the Buckeyes. I mean, I hope there's truth to it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to call.
Can you imagine Micah Jordan? And then Bo Jordan, Isaac Jordan, Snyder, Tomasello, that wouldn't be fair.
It would not be fair. That'd be interesting, but yeah, I don't find that to be true. But if it is, man, that'd be awesome. Okay. You got Isaac Jordan, Jim Jordan's son, coming back to the home state. That'd be pretty cool stuff.
Okay, that's what I heard. All right, let's move on. Levon Mays, we kind of already hit on him. He looked great, but you know what? I want to talk about the second place, Jake Short. He did something that you don't see very often, and that is a very blue chip recruit, which he 100% was. I watched him in high school. He was an animal.
Right.
He had a terrible year last year. I mean, he just wasn't competitive in a lot of the matches, never really threatened to make All-American or anything. And then he's kind of turned a corner this year and really looks a lot better and was competitive against Levon Mays.
8-6. I didn't get to watch the match, but I'm assuming that's.
He had an early lead, and Levon came back, and I think he controlled the match, but it was definitely close. And I don't know. Maybe you can think of other cases, Tommy, but it's hard for me to think of a lot of blue chips that struggled early and then came back and were stronger later in their careers. Because usually once they lose that confidence, it's kind of gone forever.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to get it back. It takes a lot of soul searching, I think, for a blue chip recruit to not figure it out in the beginning and then re-engage in the sport and find a way to be successful at the end of their career. You don't see it a whole lot, but that is an interesting dynamic, and it'll be interesting to see if he can continue that success for the rest of the year. I do remember hearing him being a big-time recruit coming out of high school.
He was good, no doubt. Ohio boy,
Ian Miller,
57. And
he's explosive, too. That guy, every time you watch Ian Miller wrestle, you know it's going to be a fun match. And again, he's the type of guy that if everyone wrestled like him, we'd have a pretty exciting product to give to people.
Damn straight. All right, that's all you got on him? I got nothing else on him.
I got nothing on him.
All right, 65, we got Isaac Jordan of the previous rumor over Chad Welch.
Future Ohio State transfer. Let's get it rolling, Ben. Let's get the rumor going.
Obviously I think Isaac was the huge favorite. There was not a lot of really highly ranked people in this bracket. I think the story besides Isaac Jordan was my boy in Missouri. Now this guy thinks he can beat my pin total, so He got 5 on the weekend. Daniel Lewis got 5 pins. I believe he beat 4 ranked wrestlers, including number 3 ranked Cooper Moore. So,
he's a freshman, this kid?
He's a freshman, yeah. And,
he's going after your pin record.
He's already got like 7 or something as a freshman, which, that's for a freshman, that's pretty impressive.
What'd you get, like 90 pins or something like that?
I had 91. And, we're on December, what are we, December 7th or something right now? And kid's already got 7. I'm going to freaking bust his knee or something. I'm down there this weekend.
Oh, that's great.
So, and this is what I'm talking. Missouri has to have a few more guys establish himself. And, Daniel Lewis, one of those guys, he beat number 3, Cooper Moore. He did lose to McFadden, but then, he came back and he beat Fierro, and I believe he beat Clark Glass. And I can't remember if he beat anyone else, but I think there was, 4 ranked guys. So I think him establishing himself as a real player in that weight class is important for Missouri and, kind of the story of that weight class for me.
Right.
So let's go 74. We got
Real Budo jumping a few weights. Looks like he didn't have any issues.
No issues. Smashed him. Smashed Bryce Hammond. Gabe Dean 84 wins easy. Back to back there for Cornell. Jaden Cox wins fairly easy against Brett Farr at 97, and Ty Walls wins at heavyweight against Michael Kroll. You want to go in any of those weight classes because there's not a huge amount that's that exciting.
Nah, man, upper weights aren't that fun to watch anyway.
Heavyweights can't wrestle with it down. Okay. Well, what else? What else we got, Tommy? I know we wanted to talk about Iowa versus Iowa State, which was last Sunday, and. I know you want to get on to a topic that you feel very passionately about, which is the stall riding. So you want to go stall riding first, or you want to go Iowa versus Iowa State first?
Yeah, let's go into stall riding here. And Ben, while we talk about this, if you could elaborate on the new rules interpretation on Top Wrestling, I guess that would help.
It's hard. The new rules interpretation is hard to say because they're kind of being called all over the board.
Yeah. So I guess. To be fair, I don't really understand the new interp on Top Wrestling. But one thing that I've seen, and you and I talked about this off the record, and I think you, to some extent, you agree with me, but you're also a big-time Top guy, so I think you want to kind of take the the other position here. But I've had a real problem with Top Wrestling and people, the way that they wrestle on Top. It's a strategy to get by, not a strategy to turn the guy. I think the point of being on top, just like the point of wrestling in the neutral position, is to score points. And if you're not advancing the position on top and you're not scoring points, you're not trying to turn the guy, flip him over, and pin him, then you shouldn't be encouraged to stay there. You shouldn't be encouraged to be in that position. But I think that the way that our sport now is officiated and competed at the college level, these guys are just hanging on for dear life and no intention to turn, just pure intention to hold the guy down. And I guess you can call it stall riding. And it's a strategy. And it's the most boring thing on the planet to watch. And, it's like being in the neutral position to me and getting credit for holding on a 2-on-1 as long as you can without any plan to score from it. Or getting a guy in a front headlock and squeezing for 3 minutes and saying, oh, I'm going to give you a point because you held that position for a long time. So to me, a riding time point is only deserved if you're trying to score the whole time you're on top. But if you're just trying to hold the guy down, I mean, seriously, what is the difference between holding a guy's wrist from the neutral position and not advancing and trying to hold a guy down with a tight waist or hooking his ankle or grabbing a near wrist and just parallel riding the guy the whole time and smothering him into the mat? And for some reason right now in college wrestling, at least right now, there's nothing being done about it, and it's being implemented as a strategy for all of these guys. And I'm not going to toot your horn too much, Ben, but you look at guys like yourself, Mitch Clark, Logan Stieber, David Taylor, Jesse Jansen. These guys, when these guys get on top of people, they're trying to put points on the board.
Yeah, I mean, I always just figured, Tommy, it's a hell of a lot easier to pin him and get the match over with than ride him for the whole time. I mean, riding. I mean, you don't know much about riding because all you do is takedowns. But riding someone who doesn't want to be ridden is, it's a difficult task. And for what it's worth, I think the essence of folk style wrestling is the ability to control and not be controlled. And for me, that's why folk style wrestling is the most dominant martial art on the planet, is because you have the ability to control or not be controlled, depending on which one you choose.
But that's the counter argument, though, that I hear a lot is, well, he's the athlete's in control. He should get credit for it. And I think that if you're in control while trying to improve the position and score, that's one thing. But if you're just squeezing the guy, I mean, seriously,
now the drop into the leg, that's the ultimate for me, which they're finally starting to call, but they should have done it 5 years ago. That one's the ultimate where they used to go to the ankle, they put it on the hip, and then the bottom guy had no choice because it turned in and they got driven through and they couldn't kick away. That was the worst to me. So listen, I'm kind of on your side on this one, but you haven't totally won me over because it's tough to ride someone for a minute, and you kind of deserve a point. And when you have people say, "Oh, it's terrible for the fans," but I disagree. When you have
it's terrible for the fans.
Wait, come on,
wait. Have you ever heard the crowd get on its feet and hoot and holler because some guy is doing a lot of lift and returns, or some guy he's hooking the ankle and just watching that clock tick down so that
you
can
get. Let me make my point.
Okay.
Iowa versus Oklahoma State. When there's an educated crowd, they start getting, like when they realize that the riding time's going over a minute, the crowd gets into it and they clap and they show appreciation.
You know what, Ben?
They understand what
this
that
riding
point
time
means.
point is. It's like getting it's like a football team getting an extra couple points for time of possession. What does it have to do with scoring? What does it have to do?
Well, the essence of folk style is the ability to control or not be controlled. So. Should
I get credit for holding on to a 2-on-1 for a minute and a half and not trying to score?
Well, that's not real control.
How is that not control?
If it was control, you'd get a takedown for it.
If it was control, I mean, if I'm on top of the guy and I'm controlling him, but I'm not getting any points, it's the same thing as having a 2-on-1 and not controlling him.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with that. I think a guy's got to be able to escape or got to be able to reverse. And honestly, there were a lot of terrible style riding tactics, they're kind of being cut down, but the refs sometimes are still too chicken to make the call or make the call at the wrong time. I mean, I just hate the fact that I can sit down at the NCAA tournament and I can watch a guy and I can tell and I know intuitively that he has zero chance of scoring points on the top, and he knows it, and the guy on bottom knows it. But we're going round and round with lift and returns, taking the guy out of bounds, throwing double boots in, but not trying to advance the position, hooking the ankle, lifting to a single leg as a strategy and returning the guy back down to the mat. I mean, that is not top wrestling. It should be called stalling, and then people wouldn't do it.
It should be called stalling. That's why it's called stall riding.
Yeah.
That's why we call the people who do this stall riding. When you're on top of a guy and you know that you're not going to score. That type of wrestler shouldn't be encouraged to stay on top. He should be put in a position where the only reason you want to be on top is because you can score.
I thought about this, Tommy, when we talked about the new rules too, it all comes down to the referee making an educated decision on who is stalling and who's not stalling. I think that's what it comes down to because and I'm going to go to economics of the situation because that's kind of what our show is about, is promoting the sport and making it better.
Right.
I think a lot of these refs, obviously, none of them do it for the money. I mean, I don't know what their paycheck is, but I promise you it's not a lot. And a lot of them do because they want to stay involved with the sport, they want to help with the sport, that kind of stuff. But if you made a situation where, say, the referees were getting paid very well to do the NCAA tournament, very well to do conference tournaments, and people wanted those positions and they desired those positions really badly, and then you had a coaches, panel of some sort that rated these referees, you're going to get the best ones advancing, And I just, let's do easy math, Tommy. There's 20,000 seats sold at NCAA tournament. A ticket cost $200, or it might have been more than that. I paid for a bunch of them last year. That's $4 million. So there's 20 refs at the NCAAs. That's 8 mats, 2.5 refs per mat, that's fair. Mm-hmm. Tell me you can't pay those guys $3,000-$4,000 for the weekend to make it a job that everybody wants.
Yeah,
you could do that. You got to be good to get there, and you got to make the right calls, and they're held accountable. because I'm all for rewarding someone who does a great job of what they're doing.
And I think this top wrestling thing, Ben, I don't think it's like the ref's fault per se.
No,
because
it is.
because I think it's the culture of wrestling right now. I mean, if we make it not happen, if we say this it shouldn't be this way, then the refs have to call it differently. But just trying to hold a guy down to me is like holding onto a guy's wrist. When you see these guys tie up wrists and never take shots, I mean, it's the most boring, annoying possible wrestling match you could watch. And I feel the same way about these top guys.
So what? But it's okay, Tommy. So what if the ref just calls stalling like this? You know what stalling is. I know what stalling is. If you've been around for the sport a while, there's a lot of people that them get away with stalling. If the ref just calls it properly and the top guy can't use those tactics, then it's fixed, right?
It's fixed.
It's fixed. That's all you need is educated refs who are making good decisions on what is and what is not stalling. You don't need a freaking laundry list of 27 things that are stalling. Everybody knows who knows wrestling. They know what stalling is, and the more you make rules, the more you make referees make stupid decisions, like what happened Dance and Tomasello. That was a stupid decision. It wasn't stalling in any sense of the imagination.
Yeah.
And the ref made that call. So I think we just need okay, NCAA, let's give these referees more money so we're getting the best guys to do the job. I mean, that's where I'm at with it.
Yep. You know, it's just I don't know how to articulate it. It's just you know it when you see it. You know, Mike Evans last year, I think the guy went through the Big Ten tournament without an offensive point, without a takedown scored on him or against him. All he had was no reversals, no back points, and he still got third in the Big Tens. So how can a guy like that make it through a tournament and get third in the Big Ten? And then, you know, obviously be an All-American. That type of tournament should not warrant third place. We have to have a system where you know, to get through an event like the Big Ten Wrestling Championships, you got to go get points. And that, I guess that's
up to the refs. I think it's up to the refs. I think there's really no other way to do it. So I know you tweeted me a few times, Tommy, but are you going to tell the general public right now about you may be a stall rider if piece?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what do you got for me?
So yeah, we spoke about this last week, but you know the Jeff Foxworthy, you know, he has the lines where you're a redneck when or if you do this and this, you might be a redneck. So let's go through this, Ben. And let me see if you agree with this stuff. But if your best move on top,
throw some in too.
Okay.
You get to have fun. I get to have
all
fun
right.
too, right?
If your best move on top is a lift and return, you might be a stall rider.
I agree 100%.
This one's hard to understand. Maybe you got to talk about it for a little bit. But if you throw double boots and never take them out, you might be a stall rider.
100%.
So it's hard to turn a guy over when you got double boots in, Ben. I mean, that's common sense when you've wrestled for a while. So these guys that have two legs in, and I understand throwing two legs in to break the guy down, and you know, and all that stuff. And I'm not a top wrestler, but I understand that. But keeping them in, you're obviously not interested in turning the guy.
Yep, I agree.
If you hook the ankle while on top and never improve the position, you might be a stall rider. Fair?
Fair. Okay, I got one.
Okay.
I got one. If you think a single leg finish is a top move, you might be a stall rider. What do you think?
I like that.
Okay.
Single leg finish. So what you're talking about is when a guy like is in a tripod in the bottom position, or he's maybe on his feet, and the other guy kind of drops down, picks up a single leg, and finishes.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's typical stall riding at its finest. How about another one? If you have more riding time points than back points for the season, you might be a stall rider.
So is that Mike Evans? Is that what you're saying? Are you addressing that one?
That would be Mike Evans. That's a slew of guys. I guarantee you that last year there's 80 All-Americans. I guarantee you there's at least 6 or 7 guys last year that had more riding time points than back points. Now, not feet to back points, though, because All-Americans, they probably are. I'm not talking about feet to back points, but from the top position, back points.
Okay. I dig it. What else you got?
I don't think I got anything
Nothing?
else, man. No.
Okay.
It's just we're having a little fun with it.
Hey, if you guys out there listening, if you got something.
So I always have this internal argument with my good friend and my former coach, Mitch Clark, because he is just a diehard top guy.
Yeah.
And he hates that I just assault all these top wrestlers for, and he defends them as best he can, but Mitch is not an example of a stall rider at all. I mean, the guy was going across his back doing God knows what, trying to turn the guy. I mean, he was like a man possessed when he was on top. His intensity level went through the roof. But we always have this argument, and I think it's an epidemic in college wrestling. I think there's programs out there that do it more than others. I think that there's a lot of, you can tell that it's being taught to break the guy down, get it in your wrist, hook the ankle, and basically just squeeze the guy until you get your riding time point. And how fun is that? I mean, that is just terrible. I mean, it's just not fun to watch. And so it's commonplace in our wrestling community, Ben. If you got a guy in the neutral position where he ties up both wrists or takes a 2-on-1 and never improves the position, I mean, he'll get booed out of the arena. Yeah. That guy will get booed out of the arena. And for some reason in top right now, it's like this hidden strategy that we just kind of accept. And I don't want to accept it.
Okay. So let's have the people listening. If you guys you might be a stall rider if. Why don't you tweet us at T-Road and Funky Show? Let's see if you guys got the good ones. I got another one for you, Tommy.
Okay, give me some.
All right. If your last pin was when Bush was president, you might be a stall rider.
These college wrestlers were like 11 when Bush was president.
That might be a little too far back. All right, so let's go on. You're right. I mean, you're kind of right about the stall riders, but I want to say it's a referee's obligation to call stalling when he sees it. For sure.
That's the other thing is that I've been a competitor before. So if I'm trying to win the match and nobody's calling me for stalling and I'm in complete control on top and I'm up 4-1, I'm probably not going to change anything about what I'm doing. I mean, that's just a fact. So it's not really on the athletes either. And I'm not trying to tell them to change their style to preserve the integrity of our sport. That's foolishness. But we should have a system that makes them wrestle on top or not wrestle on top at all. There should be no in between, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get on to this Iowa State match. And you
know
what? I got to be honest with you, Tommy. I didn't even realize it was happening, and that's exactly why I'm bringing it up. This match used to be, really it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, college dual meet of the year. For a good portion of my life, probably yours as well. And it's developed into an uncompetitive rivalry. And, man, that's terrible for the sport. And it's not on the Hawkeyes' fault because they smashed them. They lost one match.
But what's interesting, Ben, though, is that it's not like lately Iowa has been beating Iowa State in dual meets. I mean, hasn't it been for like 25 years? They've won like 23 out of the last 25 or something like that.
I don't know the exact record, but I remember watching. I watched one live when Kale was coaching there, and it was a couple.
When Kale was there, it was a bloodbath.
Iowa won, but it was it was a close match, and now when Kale was in college, obviously I remember them being really competitive matches. So I don't think it was always this uncompetitive. I mean, Iowa State just had nothing for them. They lost 33-6. And really, there's not a whole lot of matches in here that were even very close or very competitive. So, man, I think that's bad for the state of wrestling. When what was one of the best rivalries is not much anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's you could look at it that way, or you could look at it that there's so much other wrestling going on that I think you're right. I mean, when I was in college, the Iowa State dual meet was. It was like the thing to talk about in the month of December, and I didn't even think about it until after I read the results, and I actually just saw the headline results. I did not see the individual results, but
yeah. So Iowa State won two matches. They won at 165 with Tanner Weatherman, which is obviously that's one of Iowa's weak spots, and it was a 10-0 win, and they won at 141, which is another one of Iowa's weak spots. But Earl Hall got beat by 7 points. Gabe Moreno, who's ranked, got majored. Leland Weatherspoon got beat 7-1. So these matches aren't close; they're not competitive. So, as highly regarded as he is, I could ask this question: is Kevin Jackson on the hot seat? And I know he signed a contract extension, but is he on the hot seat?
Well, I would say that it's not as hot as it was. I mean, the program is, it's going now. It's on an upward trajectory. I mean, I think it is at least. I mean, they're better. They're better. I think they're going to be better this year than they were last year, and they were better last year than they were the year before. So it just depends on how you look at it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so they got Earl Hall at 7 at 133, and they got Moreno and Weatherspoon ranked kind of a little lower. I mean, theoretically, they could go All-American list. Is that a word? All-American list?
That would be tough. That would be tough for Iowa State. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be. Have they ever done that?
Not in my memory. I couldn't imagine so. I mean, I'd have to look back through Iowa State's history, but I can't imagine so because like you said, as I was growing up, they never won, but they were challenging for the national title fairly frequently. When Cale was there, I believe they took second twice. Shortly after that, I think they were top 3 a couple times. So, while I was growing up and while I was in college, they were always top 2, top 3, top 5 type of program.
Right.
So,
well, it'll be interesting to see how this year plays out. And he did sign a contract extension. Was it this offseason or the previous one?
I believe it was this offseason. So he just recently signed it. I think that Kyvan Gadsden getting a national title was kind of put him over the top for that contract extension. So while we're talking about hot seats, let me talk about someone whose seat's been on fire for about 10 years now, but the administration don't give a damn. And if this fire was hot, it just went to raging inferno. And I mean, this is something where wrestling fans someone should get involved. But Minkle at Michigan State, his team.
I knew you were going to bring up Michigan State. Yeah.
You got to. I mean, when you talk about hot seats, how can you not, right? The guy's been there forever.
Well, he basically eluded it because now he's retiring, right?
He really? That's great
I think
news.
he's out. I think he's done after this year, and Roger Chandler's taken over.
Wow, how did I miss that one, Tommy?
Yeah, so I mean, don't hold me to it. We'll do a fact check. I wish we had some little stat guy that we could have in the some corner of our podcast or whatever. But I think this is Minkle's last year, and then Roger Chandler's taking over. But it still begs the question, should someone be taking over at a program when they were part of it the past 15 years?
Wow. Okay, so actually, I just logged onto their website, Tommy.
There you go. Information age, baby.
What I was going to bring up was the fact that they got beat by Eastern Michigan 34-0. And so this is, Michigan State, Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan.
And before we go into this, Ben, I want to be fair to Eastern Michigan. They're on the up and up, and they're doing a great job.
Yeah, they are, and they're working hard, but
they should not shut out a Big Ten team.
Exactly. And now
they should not shut out a Big Ten team. That's the thing.
To compound what I was going to bring up, I logged onto Michigan State's website, and they lost to Central Michigan 33-0. So between the two, I don't want to call them lower class, but smaller
Michigan
schools,
MAC schools. Yeah.
Michigan MAC schools. In the last 4 days, Michigan State has gotten beaten 67-0. 67-0. And I mean, how do you not get fired? What can this do? What can this dude do? I mean, he might be running around campus naked and they won't fire him. I don't know. I mean, come on. Yeah,
so it's been discussed a lot, I guess, sidebar conversations throughout the years in wrestling, and a Big Ten wrestling team, and I do think, obviously Central Michigan's had a great tradition, in my opinion, at least, and Eastern Michigan's on the up and up. They shouldn't be shutting out Big Ten teams. I mean, that's a Big Ten team with the resources and the culture at the schools and things like that. They should be beating MAC teams, but to be fair, they should be at least winning a couple matches here or there. So, that kind of blows my mind, Ben. When you think about it, they wrestled 20 matches against in-state MAC foes and didn't win one of them.
Not one match. And so they got Michigan this December 10th. That's this Thursday. They could continue their scoreless streak this week. I mean, think about it.
Something tells me you're going to follow this, Ben.
If they got beat, say, 100-0 in 3 against the 3 in-state schools, I mean, how is that not a case to be fired? I mean, listen, guys, I understand he should have been fired years ago, but there's no better time than now.
Does Michigan State have anybody ranked, Ben?
Shit, I couldn't imagine.
I
couldn't imagine they do.
We need a fact check guy. We need a fact check.
If they do, they shouldn't. I mean, my God. Wow.
Geez.
Like, I mean, and this is another thing. Like, we get into wrestling and the economics of it, and the economics of it is there aren't any economics, and that's why these administrators don't give a damn.
Yeah, do you really want to? If you're, let's just speak in real terms here. If you're an AD at a school and you've got $100 million flowing in and out of your athletic department, where two sports primarily generate the profit, and you've got a coach in a non-revenue sport who's a good guy, his athletes never get in trouble, their grades are okay, and everybody at the institution likes him. He works well amongst the faculty. If you're an AD that's maybe just focused on the top stuff and you're not really trying to be great at every sport, I mean, it'd probably be easy to avoid. Nobody's gonna come after you for not holding your non-revenue sports accountable, other than yourself. I mean, other than yourself. So and then, that's just reality.
Yeah. On the flip side, who was that Georgia coach? He just got fired, and I think they had like I want to say 700 winning percentage during his tenure. Something that was super high. Was it Rick? Is that what his name was?
Yeah, right. Reicht. But anyways, he was a good coach, a good guy, but Georgia obviously expects more out of their program, and it's a dollars and cents thing for them.
Wouldn't that be great though if wrestling coaches who weren't pulling their weight would be held accountable? Wouldn't that be just fantastic?
It would be pretty unique in our wrestling community. I mean, it's in the business world every day. I mean, that's the way it is in business. If let's say you're a sales guy at a sales desk, and if you don't sell, you're not going to be around very long. I mean, that's just the way that the cookie crumbles. So it would be interesting to see that. And to be fair, you see that at a lot of schools. I mean, Ohio State wrestling, Gene Smith and the administration, I mean, they do have a standard. There's an expectation there that, if you don't win, you're not going to be around very long.
Yeah.
But there's a Big Ten school where obviously that hasn't been a priority for the, athletic director and his administration.
Yeah, for sure. All right, I'm looking through our notes here. One thing I do have noted that we have not talked about is I did get confirmation that Noel Thompson was telling the truth, and IMR will be attempting, so he has not made 65 kilos yet, but he sure will be attempting to make 65 kilos, and the source, which I will not reveal who it was, but they were pretty confident in his chances at 65 kilos, so I think I'm confident. Excited.
I'm confident in his chances. I think he's going to stand across the map from Metcalf, James Green, Logan Stieber, Jordan Oliver, Kellen Russell, Reese Humphrey, and he's going to be right in the thick of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that makes that awesome.
So did you see that Abbas? Wrestled at the Delaney Challenge in France?
Yeah, how did he do over there?
So he beat some guy from some Western European country. I can't forget which is not, or I can't forget who, or I can't remember who. Then he beat who did he beat? I think he beat a guy who was from Spain, but he's Georgian. No, he lost to the guy from Spain, but he's a Georgian. But anyways, he went 3-1, Ben, and then dropped out of the bronze match. Didn't even wrestle in it because he was just nursing some very minor injuries. But I did watch his matches. I watched them on Brandon Slade's Periscope, and I thought he looked pretty good. I mean, I thought he looked pretty good, and I'm assuming he's going to keep getting better. So it could be interesting to see how his, I know he's an older guy, but I think that, for as good as he was when he was in his prime, I mean, he could present a problem for this weight class in a couple weeks at the Olympic qualifier.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not buying what you're selling here, Tommy. I'm not buying Abbas yet, and obviously,
okay.
I understand he's an Olympic silver medalist. I get it, but I'm not buying what you. Come on, sell me some more, because I'm not buying it yet.
You know what? I don't want to sell you anymore. I could, but I don't want to. We'll just let the results play out. But I feel pretty good about that one. I think he's going to be in the mix.
All right. So you got anything else we want to talk about, or we're good to go?
No, but we are having Martin Floriani on the show, right?
Or you know what? He might get bumped because, you might get bumped for the world champ. You might get bumped.
For DC?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to call DC out and say, DC, get your crap together, boy. I'm waiting for you.
That's
next
right.
Sunday.
That's right. We're waiting for him.
So
when are we get a Martin after that then?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see if DC can get his crap together. We got him hopefully next Sunday. This concert, I don't know what concert he went to. Allegedly he went to a concert. He texted me literally 4 minutes before we're supposed to hop on.
Yeah.
So it better be a good concert. We're gonna ask him about it next week. We'll bump Martin a week. Martin, he's not that important. Just the founder of the most innovative technology in wrestling in past decade or so. So
yeah, and they're carrying our show, Ben. Let's not forget that.
Oh, yes, not forget that. So we will get Martin on here, I promise. DC wants to go next week, and hope maybe
shout out to Defense Soap. Defend what you have built. We didn't do that in the beginning of the show, but we're very grateful to have sponsors too.
Yeah, and they've been great. And then hopefully, Tommy, I just got your Rudis bags in today. And the new larger backpacks, they're freaking fantastic. I did not order it, but I had to steal one out of the box for myself. So
it makes you want to go hiking through the Himalayas, doesn't it?
I'm just gonna pack all my worldly possessions into it and leave my family to go hike.
There you go, man.
So okay, well I think that wraps up episode 4. You know what? It might have been better Daly to come on because we
a little bit of rambling today. I hope people enjoyed it.
There was a lot of wrestling to talk about. I don't think there's quite as much as next weekend. Obviously, I'll be at Missouri for the Ohio State duel, so hopefully we party on the Buckeyes, and we can talk about that next Sunday.
I haven't talked to Tom Ryan, but I think he might be putting forward a lineup that's a little bit more competitive than we put out at Vegas, so it should be a good match.
Well, I hope so. You guys didn't even score 100 points.
That's a fair dig.
All right, Tommy, have a good night, man.
See you, brother.
See ya.